The environment has become...
What we're saying is have a heart.
We've got to be able to regenerate our economy.
There'll be people who are kind, people who are cruel, but that's life. You can be bigoted about pigeons. I'm fine with that.
Welcome back. Now we want to move on to the very important topic of trafficking of prostitutes and how it is practiced and what can be done about it. I have here a report that says that the police received 53 sex trafficking reports last year, and it's up slightly from 52 in 2012 and 43 in 2011. If this is the number of cases, it's not a particularly large problem. Are these figures accurate?
You see, it's very difficult to look at the numbers. You know, the civil society has said that they have more. They have escalated over 700 number of cases to the police through the referral system, and the the Singapore Police say they have this number. So again, there's a gap there. The number that has been escalated by civil society, the number that
after investigation, because there was, I think that there was something like 17,161 women arrested on vice activities, but after investigation, between the 2009 and 2011 period, they identified only 84 victims out of this whole number. So it doesn't seem to be a very large problem. Are you saying that these figures need further study?
The numbers game is quite a seductive one to go into because it gives us certainty. But she's right, you know, it isn't about the numbers really. In my opinion, one is one too many. And I think the numbers that are reported are a function of several things, right? So it is public awareness, the number of reports actually made, the competence of the officer receiving the report to log it as a trafficking case, the definition of trafficking that allows for something to be classified as a trafficking case as opposed to merely some sort of exploitation that doesn't exactly fall under the umbrella or the ambit of trafficking. So when we explore these different measurements, you will find that there is room for expansion and contraction of the numbers. And only when we come to an agreement on what exactly constitutes trafficking can we then begin the discussion on the numbers.
Okay, is there an international norm?
Yeah.
Definition for what constitutes TIP, trafficking in people?
It's from the Palermo Protocol.
Palermo Protocol. Okay,
Yeah.
tell us what Palermo Protocol is.
The Palermo Protocol is basically the international convention that governs anti-trafficking legislation in international law. And so it's an agreement to which countries become signatories when they commit to making sure that trafficking is sufficiently penalized and there are legislative provisions to take care of the victims.
What we mean by exploitation shall include at a minimum the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude or the removal of organs. This is the Palermo.
We don't use this as a definition for Singapore.
Right now we are in the process of what MP Mr. Christopher De Souza, when he finally puts his bill in Parliament, all of us have been saying you need to use the Palermo Protocol. I think we are going to get there, but we have a problem with the Palermo Protocol in the context of Singapore where debt bondage is concerned. And that is more like for labor trafficking. All the persons that we bring in to work on construction sites or in our homes, they as domestic workers, they have a debt that they have to clear. That is recognized that in the Palermo as that no one should be employed having a debt to pay. But this is our systemic model. So it's going to take a longer while to work on it. There are some improvements.
You're saying that you want to exclude the foreign workers.
So labor trafficking is the sticky point under Palermo. But under the other stuff for sex trafficking, I think from all the consultations that we've had, it seems that we are really aligned. As CSOs, we will say what we are not happy with right? Of course. And we will keep lobbying MP Christopher D'Souza on that point, as all of us have done. But where he's talking about the sex trafficking, we are engaged totally to make it as good as possible. So that's how we are doing it. So in terms of this whole topic, right? Yes, to get as good a bill as possible from Mr. Christopher D'Souza, to continue the lobbying. This whole document that we submitted on Women's Charter, Penal Code, Employment Act and all the rest of it is taking the trafficking bill and trying to harmonize between the standalone trafficking bill and all the other laws. And then the last part is for us to develop, through the ASEAN network at least first, a proper trans-border approach to trafficking, because it has to go the same way we are devoting our energies to drug trafficking. We have got like, well, synergies and cells here and there. We need the same structure from the police officers and the custom officers and others to develop a containment model on trafficking, because perhaps a little known fact, for though unless you are in trafficking, is that the women and the girls of Southeast Asia are the largest group moving out of their countries for work. And some of it is sex work. Yeah, which I think is a shame.
This is a legal matter.
Yeah.
Is there, Suresh, anything?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about a 3-year period out of about 17,000 cases, only 43 vice arrests, 43 or 54 come out as hardcore trafficking cases, then are we coming out with a piece of legislation to address a very, very small number of incidents in the country?
What are you saying? You don't believe those numbers?
I am saying that in Singapore, I'd be very, very surprised if the coercion and the duping and the fraudulent element is rife. You know,
you don't think it is rife?
I don't think it's rife.
Okay.
I mean, I've well, without going into details, I've acted for a number of accused persons who have been accused of living off the immoral earnings of prostitutes and so on and so forth, you know, over the years. And of course, you know, as a defense lawyer, you always ask this question: how many of these girls are you know, forced into prostitution? And on the assumption that they've got nothing to lie to their lawyer, the response is usually they're doing it because they need the money. So there's also other scenarios, you know, where defense lawyers are very, very interested, and usually ask the question, you know, how many are induced into prostitution through drug addiction, for example. You know, it's a common experience, from what I understand, especially from police officers, that, you know, a lot of Eastern European prostitutes or girls are put into prostitution after having induced them, or after having created a drug addiction problem, where they've got a dependency problem, and as a result of which they've got no choice but to ply the sex trade. And all this is done in a coercive manner, which means that they are abducted and then they're fed with heroin over a period of time where the dependency arises, and after that they just carry on plying the sex trade to feed their habit. All under, of course, controlled conditions, where the pimps actually feed them with the drugs, and the pimps control who their customers are, and so on and so forth. Well, whether that kind of fact situation or reality exists in Singapore, I'm very cynical. I don't think it does. But I'm also very, very aware of what Timothy has said. He has basically made the point that one case of trafficking is one too many.
I think, for me, Singapore, we are on this movement path, and these laws are not enough for the phenomena of trafficking that is going on in our country.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brema. You know, definitely what we have now is not enough.
Can I just sum this up with the help of Brema? Sorry, you wanted to say? Oh, you're just pointing out.
You know, I thought he wanted to
no,
say
he wanted to point to
No,
you.
there was something that I would like to end with, actually. I wanted to echo what Shu Hui actually said. I think if Singapore were to jump onto the Palermo bandwagon without actually being able to fulfill our responsibilities as responsible international players, then it would be premature. And I think what is currently being done, I think all this talk about Palermo is helpful, but needs to be contextualized to the state of reality where we're at right now. We're not exactly able to fulfill our requirements in accordance with what Palermo requires of us. And I think it's therefore responsible to hold off and actually get your stuff together before we become signatories. That's one thing. The second thing is, I think there is scope for, and there's additional scope now that Chris has come off with the private members bill and done the consultations, and we know what the bill is going to be strong on and what the bill doesn't exactly cover, which a lot of civil society actors say they want covered. I think there is scope for civil society to stand in the gap there and to fulfill those needs as best they can until it becomes apparent that state capacity is needed to fill these gaps. So things like housing, things like mandated victim protections in terms of counselling, all of these things are able to be provided by civil society at much cost, I must say. And the challenge is to receive the financial backing and the adequate training and the resourcing for that.
I need Brema's help to tie this up. I think first of all we are agreed that the Palermo
Palermo.
Protocol.
Palermo
That
It's a
Protocol.
place in
Palermo
Italy.
Protocol is something that we
Sicily.
should adopt.
Yeah.
And now have I left out anything?
There are 4 P's
Okay.
to that. One, prevention. We have to invest in prevention. We have to invest in protection, which we have talked
Prosecution.
about. Prosecution and partnership, which we have. So I think these are the 4 P's that the Palermo will call for as courses of action. We have already done some of it, but we have to do it better and cannot expect the civil society just to be the ones carrying it. It has to be a partnership with the state.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're going to change topic. We'll be back and we'll talk about what lessons we can learn for the control of prostitution overseas.